Hey, what's going on, friends and family? My name's Skylent, and this is going to be a little bit more of a sad video. It's going to be a top 10 list of free-to-play games, which you know I love, but you can't play them anymore. These are going to be games that have shut down or will shut down. Servers, their service, it's all over. And the thing is that some of these games, maybe they weren't the best. Maybe they were bad. But free-to-play games, because of their ease of access and their social focus, can create some really awesome communities. So you're kind of tearing apart a home that many players lived in. Maybe in a way. I don't know if that's romanticizing it, and I'm definitely not gonna be romantic when I look back at these games. There's definitely reasons why they shut down, but I think some of you guys in the comments will agree with me, at least for a few of these games, that there was something special and you had fun with it. So let's look back, with fondness, except for me, I'm probably gonna be a little bit toxic through my reviews. Here we are. One last time, let's remember these games and the times that we had with them. Alright guys, starting out the list we have Devilian, and the list is ordered based on the proximity that the game held to my heart. So Devilian's pretty far away, I actually kind of hit it and quit it. It was an interesting idea, I was roped in with the graphics, I was kind of engaged with the idea of a Diablo-like game. I mean, it's even titled Devilian, but maybe more open, more social, almost, you might say, an MMO. But it didn't quite turn out to be like that. And I think people who get addicted to action RPGs, like Path of Exile or Diablo, might have been roped in a little bit deeper than I was for Devilian, but I kind of saw through its facade. I kind of saw the money grubbiness to it all, and in the end, it turned out to be a little bit more shallow than really what it could have been, because there actually was a legitimate amount of polish and some kind of interesting ideas. They just weren't really followed through with, at least what I could tell from my first impression. But moving on the list, number 9, I have The Amazing Eternals, which turned out to actually be not so amazing. It was frankly a bad game, and it was the first review that I ever did where I straight up called a game bad. I called it awful. I called it The Awful Eternals. The truth is I'm actually the biggest fan of hero shooters, and debatably I'm the person who coined that term on the internet, but whatever. Anyway, so The Amazing Eternals, I really wanted to like it, especially because it kind of gave me some ideas or a remembrance of our alpha paladins, with the random cards, and I loved Fiesta game modes and Halo and other arena shooters, so I really thought we were going to jump in with these crazy heroes and just randomly get all these crazy cards and abilities and weapons, but it turned out to be incredibly lame. It didn't have actually anywhere near the art style that I thought it would based on its 2D art, and it just didn't feel big and comical and explosive or heroic in the least, and its netcode was garbage and a lot of weapons just didn't handle that well. It wasn't a great game, but the core idea was kind of there. A hero shooter with card elements, Fiesta style gameplay, but it really was half-hearted in the end. So I guess it gets what it deserves, but I do know that it did have a community that was slowly building, just wasn't building fast enough. Okay, next on the list we have Ghost in the Shell First Assault. Now, I think this title would have done so much better if it focused on, those fun, weird game modes that you do see in a lot of free-to-play shooters. So you have werewolf modes, and you'll have hide and seek, which was actually in this game, or zombie modes and stuff like that. And this game, Ghost in the Shell, actually had some cool hero shooter elements, and there was a lot of customization, which I think would have lended itself well to some just really ridiculous game modes. But in the end, I think it kind of half-hearted that, the whole attempt of producing this game, because they kind of did a little bit of everything, and it just didn't really nail anything, and it definitely didn't have the feel of an anime-inspired game. It was actually really slow-paced and sluggish, and I think the netcode was kind of garbage, actually, so it couldn't be taken as an esport or competitive in the least, and it just didn't feel as good as it could have. If it was just more hyperactive, and if it was just a little bit more ridiculous with the game modes, I think it would have fit better, but actually, it was an okay-ish attempt. It just every other free-to-play shooter really is just an okay-ish, okay, we can play this for an hour kind of game, and Ghost in the Shell didn't separate itself too much from the pack. Yeah, on the note of okay-ish games, we actually have Marvel Heroes, which debatably might have had the biggest community as it shut down. So Marvel Heroes was an open action RPG, kind of like Devilian, and debatably, is it an MMO or not? I don't really know, but it had open instances, but it controlled and played just like a normal action RPG, top-down, but this one you collected heroes, and I thought that was cool. I played as Iron Man, and I know that there was a lot of controversy with this game, though, as it went through some different phases of development. and it changed around like a lot of the mechanics, and the hardcore player base came and went. But in the end, actually, it was pretty recent coming to consoles, and some people were getting into it. Some people were buying the heroes. There was a legitimate community still playing the game, and then it just got all pulled out from under them, and it actually shut down like super early compared to when it was supposed to shut down, just so immediately. And everyone just had their hearts broken, because I think this was a game that could have been salvaged, and it literally had a player base, and it could have been something fun. I was actually planning to go back and do a video on it, but then, yeah, the door shut. So there's that. Marvel Heroes. It was fun while it lasted. Well, for some people it was fun. And next up, we have a game that looks like a fantastic game, but in the end just played like another okay game. That's going to be kind of the trend here, is we have a lot of games that look really cool, maybe have some cool ideas, but really, mechanically, they just are okay. They're just decent enough, but apparently not good enough to just keep the lights on. Paragon is a game developed by Epic Games, and it looks gorgeous. I thought it looked pretty good, except for the art style. See, the fidelity, nice, but the styling, pretty freaking bland, actually. And a lot of the mechanics were half-heartedly placed in. So, like, technically, this is a vertical MOBA, and it's kind of a shooter MOBA, but not really at all. In fact, Smite, even though it's horizontal, plays so much faster, has way more aim-based attacks, and has way more originality, frankly. Paragon's, in a game, a MOBA with character-based gameplay, its characters were straight up copy and pasted from Smite, and boring. So Paragon didn't really do enough new. It just kind of looked pretty, and it was on PS4, and it ran great on PS4, but it was so slow, so sluggish, and they never really changed anything. And that's not even touching on the monetization scheme, which was super debatable back when it launched all the way to now. Next on the list, we have Hawken. So I loved this game, actually. I had my MacBook Pro. I just got started on YouTube, basically. I was playing games like Tribes Ascend and then Blacklight Retribution. But Hawken really blew me away because I was going to school for game design, and they announced the trailer. It was like 6 months in development. And then we have like this amazing graphics. It was so insane, the level of detail in the levels and then in the mechs. And it just seemed like this really dirty, gritty mech game, which coming from, Armored Core fandom, God, I was so ready for something like this on PC. But it turned out to really not be a PC shooter at all. It's really designed for PS4, so technically you can continue to play this on PS4, though I don't think you should really get your hopes up of continued actual true development. Yeah, kind of tragic, but on PC it's getting completely shut down. In the end though, it was a really cool idea, but it really legitimately just wasn't a PC shooter. It was just too slow. It had like the weirdest aiming mechanics, and it had locked aim speed, and it just didn't work on PC. But hopefully for you guys on PS4, you can have some fun. Now, coming up next on the list, we have a game that is technically not shut down, and I don't believe it's slated to shut down yet. So the only one that is like that, because it literally has like 0 player base. Hyperuniverse had a lot of controversy with its development, especially with censorship, and I even covered that specifically. However, my first impressions, I was mostly gushing at the game. It was kind of like Awesome Nuts, but maybe more brawly, definitely more MOBA, and very anime. It had some nice waifus, I have to admit it. I like some of the characters. I like the Kunoichi character the most, for reasons, but Hyperuniverse, I like the verticality, I like the traveling, but it was awkward, and it was like not really controlling the way I wanted it to, and it was kind of sluggish, and of course all the other controversies with the game, and I don't know, throughout its development, it seemed like it constantly didn't listen to its community, and it did have a community at one point, but now it doesn't. Nobody really plays the game. More people are definitely just kind of shitting on it in the forums, so if you try to find a match, you won't, and it sucks, because this game kind of looked cool, and I had fun with it. So if you did play it, cool for you, and really a tragedy for everyone else. Next up, we have Master X Master at number 3. Now, this is one of the very few games, and I think the only one that I've done on my personal channel that I did a promotional video for, and then I really wanted to do it. Like, I don't accept promotional offers from anybody. I get tons of them, but Master X Master, I was like, yes, let's do this. Because it was this cool mix of action RPG with this weird mechanic where you switch characters, the master system, but then also it was a MOBA. Now the MOBA mode I didn't really care about, but I did like the fact that it did have multiple MOBA PvP modes. It also had fun mini games. It had a lot of mini games. There was like a little arcade thing that, rouletted different modes. And of course, the PvE was a lot of different dungeons that you can dive, different kinds of dungeons. They were short, brisk pace, you just run through them, but it still had difficulty. But in the end, they as they were ramping up to launch and then past launch, they made it more and more grindy and more egregious with its monetization, which I couldn't quite review because I was given a lot of heroes. But in the end, it seemed like a big money grab as it launched, and that made me feel really weird. And then, I don't know, they never really added much to the game. Like, they had a lot of launch content. Nobody can contend that. But it was very obvious that they wanted a lot of big money. They weren't getting that big money, so they just stopped it. And that's a damn tragedy, because I really promoted it, and I don't know, I gave my word that this was going to be a fun little game. And when it launched, it could have been fun. It could have been great. But honestly, this is straight up the publisher nuking a game. But our number 2 is going to be a developer just destroying their own game from the inside out. Red 5 had such issues with Firefall. In fact, a lot of sites said that it was in development hell. You can actually just type in Firefall and probably find those articles popping up first, because it was just such a known issue. It went through so many different phases and transitions with all sorts of mechanics being added and taken away, and it really didn't help the game at all. In fact, when I was playing in one of the beta stages, it could have been alpha, I don't even remember now, there were so many, but I had so much fun. In fact, when the game launched, I actually got the $100 rover. I thought it was neat. I had a good time, and it kind of reminded me of maybe potentially what Overwatch was planned to kind of be like. There's a few other MMO planned to be like this, but this idea of like a sci-fi hero shooter MMO, before even hero shooters was like a thing, that's what Firefall was. And it was really cool because there's like this wave survival based mechanic where there would be invasions, and there would be like these insectoid monsters coming to steal or kill you because you're trying to steal their resources. And it was just some cool stuff, right? It was a fun casual game for about like an hour, but then it got hyper repetitive. There wasn't much content or much depth truly to the game, because through its development, they just kind of flip-flopped through a bunch of different stuff. And so, yeah, from the inside out, Firefall fell. And now our number 1 out of here, our top 10 free-to-play games you can't play anymore, is going to be Gigantic. Now, it's not shut down yet. It's going to this summer, but it's ceased development. And this is actually a game I applied to be a video game capture artist. I was so in love with the idea, and I was so in love with the game that I applied to work at Motiga. I was going to move across the country for these guys, but they ended up firing like everybody, and Xbox dropped them. You know, the publishing deal went through, and apparently people like worked for free. I don't know, the idea of Gigantic was so beautiful, and they had these amazing animations and characters, but in the end, it wasn't enough. And just like Firefall, the development basically, even though it had all this money, they had so much time. I believe Gigantic might have been one of the first hero shooters announced, and it had so much originality to it, but they kept flip-flopping ideas through its development, and it never went anywhere. In fact, when it launched, it actually had less heroes than when it was in beta, and honestly, it was kind of less fun. It was still riddled with glitches, and oh yeah, it was published under Perfect World, and they didn't do much with it from there to really promote it. I thought it had kind of a player base, like 10,000 players on Steam, and remember, you play this on the Arc launcher, you could play this on Windows and Xbox, so there were people looking at Gigantic and wanting it to succeed, and of course, the built-in community from the alpha days, but it just wasn't enough. Gigantic was probably the biggest, most gigantic failure of this year, because it should have been riding right there behind Overwatch, or maybe alongside of it, not staring off at the distance wishing it was Paladins. So that's what ended up happening. And it's because it lacked polish, it didn't take itself seriously, and it flip-flopped all sorts of ridiculous mechanics when it really should have just stuck to the core and built on that, because that's what the players wanted. Yeah, I know that's some heartbreaking stuff, but that's going to be the end of the list, guys. Top 10 free-to-play games you can't play, or pretty soon you won't be able to anymore. I thought some of these games could have been great. Probably all of them could have been great. They had potential. I think we can all agree on that. But whether they deserve to fail or not, that's something we can discuss in the comments below. And I just want to say in closing, even if a game is toxic, like I said, The Amazing Eternals was completely a money grab, I still wish that instead of shutting down, they just released it to the community so we can play it and have fun. Because the spirit of free-to-play is that community spirit. And it just kind of breaks my heart that developers and publishers kind of take advantage of that idea. And they try to build a game, you know, to make money, but then they just shut it down because it's not making enough money. Some of these games did have communities, and they should have been able to at least exist. They deserve that much. That's all I got to say. And I know. You probably feel the same. You know, if you're watching this channel, you love games just as much as me. So what are your favorite free-to-play games to play right now? And out of these, or maybe more, you know, how heartbroken are you? Let us know. But regardless, I hope you're having fun, guys. My name's Skylent. Keep that hype alive, and I'll see you again next time.